everybody, it's Romania Black, and yeah, can't wait. After volume 37 with Hawk going MIA and maybe being dead and who knows what, I couldn't wait to read volume 38. And I'm kind of in uncharted waters now because volume 37 was the last official English translation that I could purchase until March of next year in 2023. So yeah, I blame the publishers for not getting these volumes to me. So I was really dreading. I was like, well, I don't know what to do now because I've read volume 37. I want to keep reading. There are chapters out there that have been translated. What do I do? And Be Happy, thank you so much. Be Happy found someone had actually translated the entire volume for volume 38 and put it online. I was like, perfect. So this is going to look and feel different than I've read because I pulled up the website and it's all just like there's no like clicking between pages. It's just scanning one down there. It's going to feel weird, but I'm like, okay, we'll do this. But I want to read volume 38 in its entirety, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know if they'll include the cover page with the chapter titles. If they do, I'll just skim over it. But otherwise, we'll just hit it chapter by chapter and go from there. So with volumes 39 and 40, I feel like I'll have to just go to wherever. And I know some other people on the Discord have sent me links to where they've read the fan translations, and I'll have to do that unless Be Happy or somebody finds volume 39 in the same format as this. But we last left off in volume 37. Hawk, everybody thinks he's dead. He's missing. He's got the Sinju herb that would help Soo-won, hopefully. Don't know where that is. Soo-won has been so withdrawn from Yona and Hawk, and Yona kind of has just invaded his personal space because she's sad and lamenting Hawk, and Soo-won's like, what do I do? And so he's trying to comfort her, but even he doesn't know what to do, and he's trying to harbor back feelings that he has, that we know he has. And meanwhile, Kai is still planning to go to war. There's all this, like, everything is really in dour straits. The last volume gave me a lot of anxiety. And so I'm like, maybe... But here's the thing with Kusanagi. Kusanagi gives you a lot of anxiety, and then she rewards you for it. So I'm like, okay, just reward us. Just have Hawk come back, please. Just do that, please. So we'll see. But thank you all so much for not spoiling me. Thank you so much for helping me find these chapters and for convincing me to go ahead and read until I'm caught up and I have to wait on the next volume. So that's where we're at. But yeah, I'm excited to start this volume and just hopefully see Yona is the cover of it. So we had Hawk on the cover and now we have Yona. So I've lamented in the last volume what I don't want, and so we're going to see if that all plays out. But Zeno's also been mysteriously absent. Maybe Zeno's out trying to find Hawk. Maybe that's the case. We'll see. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? We are going to start volume 38 of Yona of the Dawn, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Kusanagi, what are you doing? What is she doing? Why? Just why? Oh my god. Kusanagi. You know? I just don't know. I thought the last volume was stressful and went by really quickly, and this volume was equally as stressful and went by just as fast. So I was like, oh my god, I feel like she's just cranking out the chapters. Like, let's just go. And you end on that. Well, the good news is that Hawk is now reunited with everybody. So maybe next volume, Hawk will get all the morale boosted and everything will be fine, right? Maybe Hawk will boost the morale, everything will be great, and we won't have to worry anymore. I'm floored by this volume. I brought Whiteboard Kun out because there's lots of things to talk about, especially like where characters are, what's going on. There's lots of new players involved. Obviously, Yona being on the cover in her battle attire. It's a different feel than when she had her like bow and was doing her like Robin Hood routine. Like here she seems very royal and dignified. But man, Soo-won, you got a hard row to hoe in this volume for me because I was like, Soo-won, you're pissing me off. But I'm like, it's not that I'm mad at Soo-won. It's just like Soo-won, we as the audience at this point, we know that Soo-won wants to just let go. And we know that there's some things about this. So let's just go ahead and just bring it up here. So Soo-won, we're just going to put him up here, right? And Soo-won, the chapter tightly closed lid. So this whole deal was chapter 217 to 222. So 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So 6 chapters, right? So that was this one. Chapters 217 is 222. But just tightly closed lid. And of course, there's lots of things going on here where Yona puts on a happy face. And so I am glad. There are some things I was worried about in the last volume that do get addressed in here that I'm really happy about. But we're going to put Yona right here as well. And Yona putting on a good face. Putting on a good face for the dragons. Because, yeah, like we established in the last chapter, she loves the dragons very much, but she doesn't want them to worry about her. And she just kind of has this moment where she just loses it, and it's in front of Soo-won. And she's known Soo-won for so long that she feels like she can't help it. Like, she despite her best efforts to, like, distance him, he's still close to her, and she cares about him, and she just can't let him go, right? So I'm going to put the dragons over here. And put them here. And saying that Jae-ha notices, right? Jae-ha notices and challenges Soo-won about it, right? Which I'm glad. Make note, Jae-ha is the one most like Hawk. So who would be the one that would notice the most about Yona? Jae-ha. Who would be the one that would call out Soo-won? Jae-ha. I like that Jae-ha is the one that's like, yeah, you know, might as well say this. And I like that he's like, she forces a smile for us, but she wept in front of you. She's like, I envy you. And to Jae-ha, he's saying, like, I envy the fact that she can be open and genuine with you, but she doesn't feel comfortable enough to do that in front of us. And Soo-won completely misreads it. He's like, well, no, her tears were of grief and despair. He doesn't get it, right? He's like, no, he's like, Yona was full of despair and was weak in front of me. Like, why is that? Why do you envy me? And it's like, Soo-won, her being weak in front of you is a sign that she cares about you and she feels comfortable to lower her guard around you. And like, he just misses it, right? But then he's like, stop thinking. I've chosen to throw away unneeded boxes. That was what father did. So we really get an idea in this volume of how much Soo-won ties to his father's philosophy. And he is deeply conditioned. It is like ingrained into his being, right? This idea that he is deeply rooted to Yuhan's military ideologies, right? Military ideologies and the strategy of war. Yeah, because we've seen a lot in the past with Yuhan to suggest that he didn't just discard all unnecessary boxes. He didn't discard the boxes of the people he cared about. He went to war for the people that he cared about. Soo-won's not getting it. It's like, no. So he thinks that he must discard anything that will stand in the way of a win. Yeah, and so this explains why he was so willing to just throw Hawk and Yona out of the way when he killed King Il. It explains everything. It's because he is so deeply ingrained with his father's military strategy that he's like, yes, I have to discard Yona, I have to discard Hawk, but it's the only way to save KOHKA, so I have to do this. And it's like, yeah, Soo-won, that may work for some military strategies, but your dad wasn't perfect. He didn't make great decisions all the time. And now he's struggling to realize that he can't discard Yona and Hawk. He's tried all this time, but he can't do it because he loves them. And I'm like, but your father loved your mother and he did all these things for her. So that's not, you would still be upholding your father's ideologies if you did stuff for the people you care about, because your father did the same thing, right? He even made decisions based on his love for Il. Like, he made his decisions like to not try to like overthrow his brother because he loved his brother, right? He didn't attack his brother when he was dying because he loved him. So that philosophy, it works to an extent, but Soo-won is so afraid to admit that he cares for Hawk and Yona to that extent because he doesn't know what to do then. It's like he thinks that'll shatter everything he's built on this foundation of his father's legacy. But I'm like, your dad loved your mom and your uncle too and made decisions based on that. So if you're trying to uphold your dad's legacy, then you're not entirely doing it the wrong way if you like Hawk and Yona. But oh my God. And just this whole thing, he's like trying to figure out, like, he's like, there's no way for me to know where Hawk is. And he's like, I don't try to think about Hawk. He's like, then why I've been looking at this map? Like, he's realizing that he's not just doing military strategy. He's trying to find Hawk too because he cares about him. #soulmates. God, this volume's so frustrating, as was the last one. The lid of a discarded box has opened. Yeah, that box has opened. Oh my God. So yeah, we have all the armies gathered, right? The Wind Tribe and everybody is gathered along with Yona and Soo-won. And Yona decides, she's like, fine, we'll go to battle with y'all. It's for the best of KOHKA. So she says that they will ride into battle. But afterwards, the alliance is dissolved. She's like, we'll go with you to fight this battle, but afterwards we're leaving. Like, we're going to do this, but if something happens to you, I'm going to support you. She's like, we've come all this way. She's like, I know you can't do this alone. I care about you, but you know what? You clearly don't want us around. She's like, you don't want the dragons here. You don't take me seriously. You don't think that I'm a potential ruler of KOHKA in case if you die. Because yeah, that's been Soo-won's whole thing. He doesn't consider her or Hawk, neither does Kishuk, as being capable of ruling. We'll talk about that. But Yona's like, then fine. But I'm not going to sit here and be your prisoner for the rest of your days. She's like, no, we'll just leave. Like, once this is over with, I'm not going to sit here and have you not pay attention to us any longer. Our alliance will dissolve when the war ends. And I'm going to go look for Hawk. Well, and then all the dragons are like, so will I, so will I, so will I. And she's like, yes, of course. But, the funny thing is, Hawk's here now. They don't have to go looking for him, and he's got the damn herb, or he's got to get the herb back from Kaji. So that's going to be interesting from Kaji. That's going to be interesting to see how that goes, if he can get the herb back or not. I think he will. I think Hawk's going to get the herb somehow, but it's going to be a matter of how and when, because he's got to get that damn herb to Soo-won and fulfill my wishes, my fangirl wishes. But yeah, so she's just like, no, after this is over with, we're leaving. Because, no, you guys are not paying any attention to us. Which I'm very glad, because I was afraid that it was going to be this whole, like, betrothal thing was going to take off. And I told you all in the last volume, I was really not looking forward to that. That Yona was going to, like, go along with the betrothal to, like, appease the people of KOHKA. But she's like, no, not doing that. I'm like, thank God. I'm like, no, none of that. And Soo-won doesn't care about her either. He doesn't want to marry her either. So... And then Gulfin. I was like, I'm just waiting for Gulfin. I'm waiting for Gulfin for, like, Hawk to be on the battlefield. He's got the Kai flag. He's got the spear. And he raises his arm up and Gulfin, like, lands on it. And Soo-won sees it and is like, there he is. Like, I'm waiting for that moment. Gulfin, if you could just land on Hawk's arm and, like, go from there, I would just, like, fangirl out of this seat. Like, if you could do that, Gulfin, I need you to do that, my friend. In volume 39, I need you to do that. Oh, my God. But yeah, we have King, Hiryu, and the 4 dragons on our side. And so we can win this. Yeah. And they're like, man, you're popular. And Kishuk says the great unifiers. And Zeno's like, okay. Zeno's back in this. And he's just kind of like, wary. Right? So I'm going to put Kishuk over here. Because he has, like, a little bit of dialogue that we need to definitely go about. I'll put in this whole thing that Zeno is oddly silent throughout. We get the looks from Zeno being like, yeah, maybe we should leave. I'm just like, meh. But I feel like Zeno might be on the same page as Kishuk because they show him, like, in the same panel as him. And Kishuk makes note that Yona and the dragons are the great unifiers. I mean, the sad thing about it is that both Soo-won and Yona are unifiers. You have Soo-won who can unite the people despite the divine. And then you have Yona who can inspire and unite people because of the divine. So it seems like Kusanagi is making a point of saying that this whole series, it's about a balance. Like you can have faith and you can have spirituality, but you also need to have faith in yourself and your own free will. So it's like not saying that there's one that is wrong and one that is right, but that it's like everything in moderation. You need a little bit of both to unite everybody. And so Keisha's kind of noting that as well, right? And he says, Princess Yona and the 4 dragons symbolize the kingdom should the alliance be dissolved. Well, ideally, no. Ideally, no. You should, if you're trying to keep the kingdom together. But I think that there's a way to go about it. You can do it without keeping them prisoner. Right? Because right now, Keisha and them are kind of just keeping them prisoner there, right? You can not keep them prisoner and still unite the kingdom. What they were doing before, where Yona was like going out kingdom to kingdom and like solving crimes and helping the people, that was unifying everybody together. But she didn't have to be in the palace to do that. So they're so paranoid that the king's sickness is going to get out that they want to keep her there. But I'm like, no, you should just let her go. And then they're going to keep it a secret. You should trust them, let them go, but they'll keep supporting you either way. But honestly, I think Yona, the thing of it is that she wants to stay there and support Soo-won because she cares about him, but she's in love with Hawk and she wants to make sure Hawk's safe and get that peace of mind. So I think it says something for Yona to say, I'm going to dissolve this alliance and leave you, dying king, so I can go find the love of my life. I think that does say a lot, right? Now, would she come back? I think she would. I think her and Hawk would come back to help him, but they don't seem to think that. But anyway. And then, yeah, Hawk's alive, bitches! He's here! Thank goodness they're about to bury him alive! I got Monty Python vibes where it's like, I'm not dead yet! And like just trying to get out of the pit. But even our Thunder Beast has his limits. And his limits are him just like being washed away and dying and bleeding, you know. What can we do? So I like that. And then this woman, Soo-won and Ran, they being the ones that find him and say, that's my husband. Like she's saying, I don't want anybody else to die. And so kudos to them. Kudos to them for coming up and saving our boy Hawk. We'll put Hawk down here. We'll put Hawk right here. In that he was saved by Ran and his mom, Soo-won. That she saved him. And I love, of course, we get the shot of the lapis lazuli, like where he, like just within his vision as he like collapses to the ground. Oh my God. And then this little kid. I love this little Ran. Like he's just on top of Hawk and he's like, oh God, what a cute little kid. He's so precious. And she's like, he's hurt. Get off of him. Says, my name is Sonnen. Okay, not Soo-won. Sonnen. And she says that that's their home and she was saving him from being hurt. So yeah, saving him there. And saying that was a grave for the casualties of war and you were washed there by the flood. And he's like, shit, where's my pouch? And of course he doesn't have it, right? And so he's trying to get out and go find the pouch. He's like, I have to find that Sinju herb. And she's like, well, how important is this? And he's like, you have no idea. And that's when the kid's like, there's generals coming. And we don't see all the generals. Of course we see, okay, I guess that is Kuryu, and then the big guy, Aoi, is like the one following him. I guess we do get that. Like, Kusanagi playing with a lot of shadows in this volume. Playing with shadows and getting people noticed that way. But then Judo! Judo and Gunte, I'm glad Gunte's okay. I'm glad Gunte's okay and in good spirits. In good enough spirits to give Judo a really hard time. And Judo has a great moment in this chapter too. Judo's doing all right for himself. I love these like, get out of here, let me go. And they're like holding him back. It's so cute. Chapter 218, the horn that beckons war. I just love that Judo's like, let me at him, right? It's so weird to see these like chapter by chapter with the advertising on them for the volume. It's a great time. And this just came out in February. Like when these chapters ended, they were like February or March of this year, right? Right? Holy cow! That just came out. Like y'all, while I was watching the anime, you all were reading these chapters, being like, Romania, just wait! You guys have been holding in all this time. I feel for you all. I really do. I really do. Oh my God. But yeah, I'm glad Gunte's in better spirits. And so Judo, Gunte is like, I owe Hawk my life. And so Gunte, I love that he's like, he owes Hawk his life. He's like, he went there and protected my people. He protected my people on the battlefield. He saved my life. Like, he's like, I owe Hawk, like, everything because he spared me, right? Mm-hmm. That kindness and compassion. And Judo seems to think like, okay. So yeah, Hawk maybe Hawk is not going to try to kill Soo-won like we thought, because, you know, if you were trying to do a big coup d'etat, you would have let Gunte die. So maybe that's not the case. So you can see the wheels turning in Judo's head, like he's thinking, right? He's thinking about it. And so then we have the South Kai Army, which they just have 100,000 troops. So it's sheer numbers and might. And they have financial and military powers. Like Ron said, they have the finance, they have the numbers. They're just going to be a force to be reckoned with, right? And you kind of get sort of where Soo-won is coming from in terms of Yuhan saying that you have to make hard decisions. You have to make hard decisions in battle. And like, that is true. There are times where you can't view every single person on an individual basis. You have to treat things like they're pieces and move them accordingly. However, sometimes you do have to look at things in a different way than just a straightforward strategic, like, inhuman way. You have to, because the thing about Gunte being saved, Yona trying to save the troops, Yona trying to find another way, like, those things pay off in different means than just being a heartless monster on the battlefield. So it's more nuanced than that, and Soo-won's just treating it like a chessboard, like an inhuman chessboard, and you can't exactly do that all the time. But that's all Soo-won knows. So that's what he knows to go with. And Yona has much more of a compassionate heart towards the whole thing. And she's not entirely right. She's like, wants to do some things that seem more irrational and emotionally charged. They're like, no, Yona, hold on. But her and Soo-won, they need to be working together, because she has like the compassionate side of it and he has the military prowess. They need to work side by side. But Soo-won's being a stubborn little bitch about it. No. But Soo-won is being really stubborn. And I'm like, dude, if you just worked with Yona, but he's got the sickness, he's not in good health, he's barely able to stand up, and he's relying solely on his laurels and his father's teachings in this drastic moment, then trusting Yona. And we're going to talk about it, but that's where he's making the big mistake, is he's just choosing to discard everything, and it's like, you don't have to do that, right? And so I like that Judo kind of discards. Judo realizes, he's like, if Hawk were here fighting this big of an army, would he be deterred or would he keep moving forward? And he determines that he would keep moving forward. And he's like, why do I still have this inferiority complex towards him? Like, it's holding me back. So Judo comes to his senses and is like, yeah, I've got this inferiority complex. I need to do something about it. And Gunte's like, yeah, don't do anything rash. Just withdraw. Come back. And he's like, no. But I do think Judo, despite rushing into the battlefield, I think he makes progress in getting past Hawk, and that he acknowledges his inferiority complex and moves past it. So I think there's that. I like that. And I like the Gunte's like, you moron, come back. So I was confused with General Kura'u when we first got introduced to him, I'll admit, because we see the white hair with the mullet coming behind, and then we cut straight to Maignan, and for a second I thought it was Maignan that was there on the battlefield, because Maignan was a general. I was like, does Maignan have a different name? Is Kura'u Maignan's name? It's not. It's just Maignan it's a totally different thing. We're talking about two different people. They just happen to have the white hair, right? And I love that she's just hanging out with Yoon. Her and Yoon just piecing up, eating some food together. It's the cutest thing, right? But Kara'u is the one to fear, because he's like Yuhan. He does not care on the battlefield who he hurts. Does not care who he hurts. The problem is the people that Yuhan cared about, his mom and his brother, were never on the battlefield with him. So he never had to worry about discarding them, because they were never there. He was always fighting for them, but they were never alongside on the battlefield with him, so they weren't something to be discarded. He could be ruthless on the battlefield, but the means of the means were an end to save and keep them protected. What makes Soo-won's situation different than Yuhan's, which is why he doesn't need to totally, in my opinion, rely on his father's advice, is because the people he cares about, Hawk and Yona, are on the battlefield with him. So it makes it a totally different thing. So this philosophy that he's dealing with that's his dad's, it doesn't apply the best to this situation. It doesn't apply the same way. Soo-won is trying to imitate his father down to an art. And you can only do that to an extent. And this is where it kind of breaks away, right? And Soo-won just doesn't want to break away and do his own thing. Maybe he doesn't know how to, right? He's so ingrained in his father's doctrine. But yeah, so we have some players on here. I'm going to write this down. That we have Karayu. I'm going to put him up here. Karayu is the scary one, right? And then Mainyan. Mainyan was a general too. And we have Kaji. We have them too. And then we have Ran. We have Ran. Right? But Karayu is Karyu's pretty crass, and he kind of laughs off Judo's challenge to a duel. And Judo is very by the book and formal and proper. And Karyu does not seem to fall in line with that at all. He doesn't seem like he cares. He seems like he can play dirty. And his weapon, I'm not looking forward to. I have a feeling, I don't know. Well, it seemed like Zenomime knocked him out. I don't know. That weapon he has looks terrifying. The spear with like the crescent moon with the spikes on it, that looks terrifying. I don't like that at all. But them having the catapult, the beacon of war, and firing the boulders at the soldiers, and then Jaeha and them come in. Which, God, it breaks Jaeha's boot. Which I always get worried for these dragons, like constantly, because I get so worried with the dragons because I'm like, Jaeha and Kija, they're not weapons, they're people, and they only have so much strength, and these dragons make me have anxiety, because I'm like, get off the battlefield, stop fighting, you're gonna get hurt, you're not Hawk. The fact that Hawk is more durable than a dragon of KOHKA is saying something, right? But yeah, so Soo-won just showing up with the army, and Yona being there, and meanwhile, Sheena is trying to find Hawk. So this whole time, Jaeha and Kija go in to help rescue the Earth Tribe and advance. And Sheena is looking for Hawk. But because he doesn't know, he doesn't see the reinforcements yet. And it's so convenient that Kusanagi writes it to where he's passed out nearly by the time Hawk shows up. So of course he wouldn't be able to see him. So Kusanagi, she knows what she's doing, right? And then you almost think it's Jaeha, but then, yeah, Hawk standing up. And that poor lucky kid getting to tackle Hawk, where he's like the horns of KOHKA. Kusanagi is feeding us well with the Hawk content. I'm just saying, Yona, you are a lucky girl. And so this woman's like, I'm not marrying you. I like that she bonks him. She's like, I'm not marrying you, handsome, hot man. But she's like, I just saved your life. I do want to get a picture of her bonking him. I think it's really funny. He's like, I'm not going to become your husband. I love that Hawk, even though he's like, no, I love Yona. It's like, you sweet man. But yeah, and then this shot of Hawk, where it's like human weapon, chapter 219. I love that he's waiting outside. And he looks so, I don't know, there's something youthful about the cover spread for chapter 219. There's something about it. He just looks really good in it. But they keep looking for the pouches that he has. And he manages to find the one that Kaji has. Now, Kaji is interesting. I like that Kaji is kind of like a kind of wording of Kija. Kija and Kaji are kind of worded the same, and they both have like similar hairdos. It's interesting. But Kaji is an interesting person. He doesn't like people. He likes plants more than people. He's more concerned about saving the land itself of South Kai than protecting the people of it, which is interesting. I feel like he would root more for the animals in the movie living than the people, right? But he also has a very black and white, pragmatic approach to justice, where he thinks that if you disobey the law, then you need to give off your fingers so you don't steal again. It's like, okay. And God, of course, Hawk cannot just stand there. That woman was going to lose her fingers. To make note, Sanan was going to lose her fingers so that Hawk and her kid were safe. That woman's a badass, right? But Hawk's just like, nah, and I love that he grabs the blade with his fingers. he's not human, y'all. Hawk is not human. I cannot. I don't know what Hawk is, but it is not of this mortal world. Right? It's just too good. And so then Kaji, luckily, does not recognize him as you know, someone of KOHKA. And I love that he's like, well, this pouch is mine now. And Hawk's like, well, you know, it was mine. He's like, well, I found it. He's like, you'd have your fingers cut off of this for the capital. And in his face, he's just like, okay, fair enough. Like, I just love that. And Hawk's just so unsuspecting. He's like, what about it, right? Oh my God. It's the best. And he's like, well, he's clearly able to stand on his feet, so he's fine. And the only general that Hawk remembers is General Ron. And he's like, well, then you need to join our army so that you're not a deserter. So, again, Kusanagi cleverly writing Hawk back into the story, being like, now he's back in the army of South Kai. It's like Hawk has been around the block. He's been in all the armies. He's now, I joked in the last volume that he's been in every army so far and gained their respect. Well, now he's been in the army of the enemy, so he's probably going to gain their respect too, you know? It's going to be kind of crazy, right? They're going to tell stories. If everything goes all right for Hawk at the end of next volume, if everything goes all right, I just imagine the enemy telling stories and being like, did you know that Thunder Beast? He infiltrated our army, but he was so smart. He outwitted General Kaji. And it's like, I just have a feeling the Hawk's going to make a name for himself. And that's where we're going to go to from here. I just get that feeling, right? But them firing the catapult and Kija and them being able to like hold it off, and Judo. I love that Judo's like, it's heartening. Like he's like, I feel like I can do what I need to do with you two here. So everything seems like it's gonna go well, right? Everything seems like everything's going to plan, no worries. And then we get the arrow fired from Kara-U saying we have our own human weapons. And Yona gets a bad feeling about this, right? And so that's when he gets like, they start firing people out of the cannons, and they're Earth tribe. They're not just people. They're not just people. They're not just corpses. They're living Earth tribe members that were taken hostage that are being fired from the catapults. And Ki just like, if we don't catch them, they're going to die. Like, it's terrifying, right? It's terrifying how cruel the other side can be. And Yona's just like in shock, right? And that's when Kara-U says, this is how Yuan had fun in Xing back in the day. Except it was just flying heads. So again, there is that tie back to the heartlessness that Yuan had. That, yeah, Yuan had a legacy of being a powerful general, and the people respected him for it, and many of them loved him for it. But that cruelty has bled into these other cultures, including South Kai, to the point where Kara-U is like, well, we've seen how ruthless he can be, so we'll just be even more ruthless, right? There's a downside to that lack of compassion that Yona and Hawk bring to it, that if we just keep on being heartless in battle over and over again, nothing changes. It just gets more and more heartless, right? And in this case, Yona and Hawk are at least trying to change the system somewhat, and Soo-won's not recognizing it. But yeah, the fact, as soon as he like quoted Yuhan, I was like, yep, that's what we're going back to. We're going back to Yuhan and his not good policies, right? So yeah, so Kija and Jeha, I do love that we see them, Jeha being like, this is why I hate war. And just seeing him and Kija back to back, it's a really good panel. I like that panel of them a lot, actually. Let me picture that. But Yona is really worried about them going in to destroy the catapult. And Yona says, can't we help the people who are being held captive? And Soo-won's like, well, isn't that what the dragons are doing? She's like, yeah, can we send some backup? Like, you know, until now, like, Soo-won is treating everything like it's a pre-established chessboard. We don't change from the plan. We keep the plan. Whereas Yona seems like a more flexible strategist where she's like, okay, well, this was the plan. Now we've had this alteration. Shouldn't we adapt to the alteration and do something different? And Soo-won's like, nope. We got to keep things like we did, like we were planning it, and it'll all be fine. But Yona's like, So Yona is much more flexible, and Soo-won is much more fixed. And there's pros and cons to both, right? There are pros and cons to it that you could argue that both Soo-won and Yona, there's benefits to the way they're thinking, and there are disadvantages to it. So it's like, well, which one's going to be best for this situation? And then Soo-won, he kind of gets a little dig at Yona, where he's like, a change in strategy would be fatal, which you get that. But then he says, I had hoped the dragons would refrain from acting on their own. It's like, well, damn it. She's like, if they aren't careful, we could suffer some damage. She's like, but the people are being treated so cruelly. And he's like, you really follow the same ideology as King Il. And she's like, excuse me? And he's like, this is war. I shouldn't have brought you here. That pissed me off a little bit because I'm like, Soo-won, you can barely stand on your horse. You are going to pass out in the next 5 minutes. The whole, we shouldn't have brought you here. I'm like, it is by the grace of this story that you're still here because of Yona. So I'm like, that made me so mad because I was like, Soo-won, he keeps thinking, he says that Yona has Il's ideology. And it's like, it's so frustrating because Soo-won is tying like even the remote amount of compassion to being like, oh, that's bad because Il was like that. I'm like, being compassionate does not make you like King Il. King Il was compassionate to a degree, but I just feel like Yona's face there, she's like, did we read the same diary? Did you read your mom's diary? Did you read Il's little afternote there? Did we read the same thing? Are we on the same page? Like, I just feel like that's such a bitch line from Soo-won to say, and it makes me so mad at him. I'm like, Soo-won, and you could argue he's just defending himself at this point because he himself is having all these conflicting thoughts, but I'm like, I want to like Soo-won a lot, but these last 2 volumes have not made me like him very much. I'm like, Soo-won, you are only here because of Yona's support. I just, ugh. And Keisha's going to talk about it here, but yeah, Keisha's saving Jae-ha from the arrow with his hand, which is really sad. Now, granted, I'm glad Keisha got the arrow out and he's like, this freaking hurts. Like, he's just like, it's not the end of Keisha, right? But Jae-ha going into the midst of the battle to break the catapult, it was a great move. It's a badass moment where he's like, don't look back, just do it. But then at the same time, there's still 5 more. And I'm like, it's like you stop one thing and now he's faced with something else. And honestly, Jae-ha wasn't a lot of trouble. He probably would have gotten killed if Sheena and Zeno hadn't shown up. So this little exchange between Karu and Jae-ha, where Karu's like, wow, you've got a pretty face there. I'll make it even prettier. And Jae-ha's like, I came here to kick that ugly ass grin off your face. And he's like, well, I might just beat the shit out of you. Like, it's just, oh my God, these two back and forth. But then Sheena, darling, oh my God. I absolutely love it. I love Sheena coming in and then him feeling like his heart's getting crushed, and then all the other troops, even Oi getting like taken out. But Oi's pretty strong. He basically resisted Sheena to an extent, right? And then poor Sheena, he's fallen down, but he's not completely unconscious. And Zeno's helping him back up. But God, Zeno getting impaled and then like lifted up into the air. I was like, which we all know Zeno's fine, but it's just, that's the worst thing. And Zeno, that line, he's like, last breath, you won't be finished even if you're old and gray. He's like, you can try to kill me all you want. It's not going to work. But, and then him deciding he wants to take Chagel, Zeno. I'm like, everybody just leave Zeno alone. Leave him alone. He's immortal. He's suffered enough. Let him be, damn it. I feel like the kid under the sheets. It's like, leave Brittany alone. I'm like, leave Zeno alone, please. But then they give the update to Soo-won. And Yona is like, the captives, how are the people rescued by Keisha and Jae-ha doing that? She's like, they're still in the battlefield and they'll be crushed by the cavalry. We need to send some medics. And Soo-won is like, I've already made up my mind. Just keep moving. And I'm like, Soo-won, it almost feels like he's panicking and he doesn't know what else to do than to stay on the course. But I'm like, Soo-won, you can move around the course at some point. You don't have to stay on it. It's okay to be vulnerable, right? And he's trying to be strong because he's the king, but I'm like, but then at that moment, Guntae comes up and Yona is compassionate to the Earth tribe, and that wins over Guntae, where he's like, no, you showed my people compassion. You want to save them. You and Hawk. He's like, I owe you everything. It's like, you can keep to the plan, and that might be a great military strategy, but it's like, Soo-won, your whole goal is to keep KOHKA unified. You just saying that you're going to fire arrows at the captives when Yona's sitting here going, let's rescue them. That's like in direct opposition to that. So And I know people are going to comment about it, but it makes me so mad in this volume. And Gunte, where he's like, I'm speechless with gratitude. And he tells Soo-won, he's like, I'll resign after this. He's like, I'll resign as general. Just do what I ask. He's like, I beg you to save these people. And Ki-shuk at this point is like, maybe we shouldn't have talked about abandoning them in front of the Earth Tribe General. I was like, you think? I was just like, oh, Ki-shuk. He's like, maybe talking about firing arrows and killing their people that were held captive was a bad idea in front of them. I'm like, you think it was, Ki-shuk? So he's regretting the plan in terms of the Earth Tribe and their involvement. He's like, they're a big part of this. Do we really want to like, what should we do? He's like, the general understands the rules, and so Ki-shuk says that Yona and the Thunder Beast are too soft-hearted to be rulers. I'm like, I disagree. I disagree entirely. I think that they could totally be rulers because they're not too soft-hearted. This is the thing that bugs me, is that Soo-won thinks that Yona can't kill someone. I'm like, Soo-won, she's killed somebody. She has taken a life. She's not afraid to take a life. But she also understands the value of people and when to do things. Like, just don't go on a rampage, killing everything and burning everything in sight. There'll be nothing left. She's like, you have to make the right decision to kill when it's necessary. And she's like, you also, need to withdraw when it's necessary, right? And Soo-won doesn't know how to alter the plan. And Yona's a bit more flexible. So no, I get mad at this because I'm like, no, King Il would be like, oh, well, let's just retreat and withdraw into Hiryu and never come up again. That's not what Yona's saying. She's like, no, we need to fight them, but be smart and try to save all of our people. Don't just sacrifice people unnecessarily. And Soo-won's like, nope, sacrifice them. Be done. If it gets done with the cause, screw them. And Yona's like, no. So when Ki-shuk says Yona and the Thunder Beast are too soft-hearted to be rulers, I'm like, I disagree with that. But then he follows up and says, but that soft-heartedness is what saved General Gunte's life. And when the Thunder Beast sacrificed himself in his stead, that moved his heart. To think he would defy His Majesty Soo-won's command to follow Princess Yona. That's the thing. Yona and Hawk have the power. That soft-heartedness moves people to their cause. It gets them on board with them. And I think that's not a bad thing at all. Ki-shuk's like, well, it's working, so what do we do with that? It's like, well, maybe you need to reform your policies just a wee bit. And so Gunte rode towards his last battlefield. I'm like, no, stop. I do love that you can see the spread now between the two chapters. You can see Hawk and Yona together. She has the purple and he has the green. My heart, I love it so much. But anyway, then we get this chapter where Soo-won is being taught by his father to stay calm and look at the board carefully. Don't think of them as people, only how to advance. Don't be afraid to use fear or deceit and discard the unneeded pieces, even if it's your friend. So this philosophy of discard anyone unneeded, even a friend, and advance and don't think of them as people. Thanks, Dad, for telling your 4-year-old child this, to be a heartless monster. And I know a lot of people will comment being like, oh, he was teaching Soo-won to be a strong strategist. But I'm like, this was a 4-year-old child that you basically like these are little kids who are at their most impressionable state. And you taught your son that it's okay for him to be a heartless monster and care about no one and have empathy for no one as long as it advances your cause. And feel free to use fear and deceit. Don't be afraid, feel free to use fear and deceit. Like, that's shaped his very foundation, right? And so it's like, we've gotten Yuhan's backstory and we've seen that he's a much more layered character, but I'm just like, dude. But the thing of it is, Soo-won has applied that philosophy to more than just the battlefield. It is now applied to his entire life. And I feel like Yuhan is like, no, this was only supposed to be a battlefield thing, not your entire life philosophy, right? Because that wasn't how Yuhan was. So if you don't, it'll be the whole kingdom of KOHKA who will suffer for it, your highness. And so then we cut back to we cut back to KOHKA talking about Your Highness. And so otherwise the kingdom will suffer. Well, no pressure, right? So I do feel bad for Soo-won on some level, because his father he loves more than anything in the world. That's the philosophy his father taught him. The problem is that philosophy is not really applicable to every aspect of your life, nor should it be. And Soo-won is treating it like it is. And so it's like, and so he's like, move according to plan. And KOHKA's like, well, we'll lose the dragons. And he's like, there's no change of plans. And Yona's like, do you not get that we have a different circumstance, that maybe we should alter the plan? We shouldn't just be totally bullheaded about this? Because, yeah, you're just aiming arrows at the captives and everybody else that are in the way there, right? Luckily, KOHKA's out of range of the arrows. And so he's like, our long journey puts us at a disadvantage. We have to hurry. There are no changes in the plan. And what I love about this chapter is he's like, if we falter, we fail. And the whole time he's just sitting there thinking about it. In the back of his mind, he's like, the name of the missing person is Hawk. And it's like, it's rattling his brain, right? He's like, and then Yona's like, I won't let anything else be taken from me. I will not get in the way of the battle. I beg your acquiescence. And she's saying, please. He's like, let me look at the chessboard carefully. If I can subjugate the Kai kingdom, I'll accept my death willingly. So yeah, this whole part here, it's Soo-won. He's like, my whole mission in life has been to subjugate Kai Empire so I can die. And it's like, no. I'm like, Soo-won, stop. It's like, make it stop. And it shows him and his dad, like him imitating his father. And I'm like, you're not your father. Yona is not ill. You are not Yuhan. You don't have to follow in the same footsteps. I'm like, what did we just spend volumes 32 and 33 doing? We spent those volumes figuring out that we don't need to repeat the mistakes that our parents made. And Soo-won is repeating the mistakes that his parents made, and it's making me frustrated. Right? So meanwhile, KOHKA's like, that freaking hurt. And he's like, oh my god, there's this cavalry coming. And then Zeno, with the getting the spear out of him. He's like, oh, you're immortal. And he wants Zeno to capture him. And then KOHKA comes around and manages to get way down so they can run away. And then the archers are coming. And I like that Zeno is like, get the captives. I'm fine. You guys get the captives, right? Oh my god. And we don't find out what's happened to them, right? So at this point, we don't know the result, but they're all together during the arrows being fired. And Yona is just rightfully so very angry, right? Yona's just mad. And the people are like, they're like, why are our soldiers firing at the 4 dragons? And KOHKA's like, he's like, well, I brought them here to boost morale, and it's having the opposite effect. And he thinks that Yona won't forgive this. He's like, they'll break apart. And yeah, it shows him as Soo-won, they'll break apart. It's different from when King Il died. Now the people who worship the King Hiryu support the princess. This was the wrong choice. Which I don't think it was the wrong choice to bring her there. But I do think that KOHKA is very pessimistic, right? So KOHKA thinks that Yona won't forgive Soo-won. And I'm like, you really don't know Yona and Hawk that well. I mean, Hawk, if you'd said that 10 volumes ago, the Hawk wouldn't forgive Soo-won, I totally agree with you, but I think Hawk has moved past that. But yeah, he's convinced that Yona will not forgive Soo-won, and unlike the people not liking King Il at all, there are people that like Yona, and so they're going to support her, so if anything happens, then it's going to put Soo-won at a disadvantage. But the moment that he sways, saying this was the wrong choice, Yona supports him. And just the look on her face. She's like, you can tell that she is very upset and disappointed with Soo-won, that he wasn't listening to her, but she's like, damn it. She's like, I still care about you, you baka. But you need to get a grip, right? And they're all just looking at her, and she's like, it's fine. The dragons are safe. Like, girl puts on, he's like, we've been saved by her. She puts on a front. Yona puts on the show. Yona basically is the only one saving morale at this point. Because she's like, no, we've got to. She's like, we've got to save morale. And Soo-won's trying to get up, and she's like, if we call your physician, it'll attract attention. You've just got to hold on. And this whole time, Soo-won's like, why are you supporting me? Like, I'm doing these awful things. He's like, and then in the back of his head, he's like, I can't let these thoughts in right now. And it's like, just let it in, damn it. And he keeps saying Hawk's name. And he's like, shut up, discard the unnecessary pieces. And then we see that Yona and Hawk, like her saying like, welcome, Soo-won. And then Hawk's like, I'll stand by you two till the very end. And then Soo-won's like, I can't discard them. That part got me. Like, I was getting emotional there because it's like, no. It's like, Soo-won, it's okay to admit that Hawk and Soo-won are pieces you can't discard. Ugh. Yep. So anyway, the Wind Tribe. Hyundai. Hyundai I was getting really worried about because they start getting surrounded. Hyundai and Taeyu are. Yona realizes that reinforcements arrive. Soo-won's hand is freezing. He's barely managing to stay on his horse. She's like, what should I do? We see the stupid Sinju herb, and I was like, put that back in the pouch, which he does. I was like, damn it. And so then he's like, wants to go home. Then we see Hawk looking beautiful on the cover spread. And Yona's like, what do we do? And she's like, we have to withdraw the Fire and Wind Tribe troops, otherwise they're going to get surrounded. And so they talk it out, right? She's like, have the archers cover their retreat and have them do it. And she's like, we don't have time to think. And Yona makes the call to get them to retreat. And Soo-won's like, if I hadn't made the call when she did, then we would have lost. And it's like, yeah, no, my delayed decision, Yona made up for it. So meanwhile, someone cuts that she's worried that the archers are going to get cut and the archers are going to get hit by the catapult. And at the last second, and the thing of it is that she's worried about the archers falling. And he's like, Yona, it's not. And he isn't able to finish the sentence, but he was trying to tell her it's not her burden to bear. He's like, I'm the one who made the final decision. Even if I told you these comforting words, what would they accomplish? No matter what I say, I can't save her. Hawk, it has to be Hawk. What am I seeking for after all this time? Because it's like, yeah, no, Soo-won, I was really glad that at this moment, Soo-won realizes, one, that Yona loves Hawk. Realizes Yona loves Hawk and that Hawk's the one that's going to save her, right? Realizes that. But also, on top of that, Soo-won also realizes, like, what am I seeking after all this time? It's like, he wants to be with Yona and Hawk, and it's like, I keep waiting for him to realize that Yona and Hawk could be king and queen of KOHKA. I keep waiting for him to realize it, and he could be he could be alongside them for the ride, you know? I keep waiting for it. I do. But it's like, what the heck, man? And it's like, your soulmate's out there. Oh my God, the fact that Hawk is there in the moment, and the look on Soo-won and Yona's face when the catapult's cut, and it's like, no, it was cut by a blade. It's cut by somebody in the army. It's like, I'm like, Hawk is there. I'm waiting for Yona and Soo-won to see that it's him. I'm just waiting for it. And now I have to wait till volume 39. How dare they? How dare they, right? But yeah, Hyundai, he takes off. And I love that Taeyu's like, don't you die on me. And it's like, do I ship Hyundai and Taeyu a little bit? Yes. They're best bros. And I was really worried that whenever he was like, I'm faster than anyone and I won't die, I was really worried that he was going to die. I was really worried that Hyundai was going to get killed. I kept waiting for like an arrow to come through or something and hit him. I was like waiting for it. I was like, don't you dare. And then he's about to get hurt, and who attacks but Hawk with the damn banner. And I love that everybody's like, what are you doing? And Kaji comes up like, soldier, you're not doing things right. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm new here. I'm like, Hawk, my dude. And they're like, you. And he's like, he just looks so plain. He's like, Hawk's like, hey, what's up? Got this bandage around my head. He's like, did you cut the rope? He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. As he has the banner of Kai Empire along his shoulder. Oh my God. Oh my God. So yeah. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at in this series. It's a fun time. Yeah. So on the one hand, we don't know what's going to happen with the dragons. They're like in the midst of enemy territory right now. Soo-won's barely hanging on. Yona's keeping it together. Gunte's like, let's go do things. What do we do? And then on the other hand, Kishiga's like, I don't know what to do at this point. And then Hawk has joined the fray. So on the one hand, there's all this chaos and confusion, and we don't know what's going to happen. But on the other hand, Hawk's back with everybody now. So I'm just waiting next volume for, I want Hawk and Yona to save the day, even if they have to retreat, even if they have to like, but they took out a lot of troops, so we'll see what happens. But I want Hawk and Yona to take charge of the battle. But Hawk is like at death's doorstep. How is he even a thing? How is he even fine? I don't know. How is he even fine? I don't know. But I feel like they need to like go recuperate. Maybe they'll retreat. I don't know. But I just feel like Hawk being there, I want to see Yona and Soo-won's reactions, but damn it, we've got to do next volume, so I don't know if I'll be able to wait. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to wait. I just don't. We'll see. We'll see. So I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I want Soo-won to get it through his baka brain that Yona and Hawk are good for him, and that he needs to accept their support and help. And I want Hawk and Soo-won to have a conversation, to talk it out. I want that. I want to have it. So we'll see. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon after I calm down with some more Yona of the Dawn. Bye.